But Michigan makes it to the Final Four. First of all, objectively, as the journalist you are, were you surprised to see Michigan in the game and the way that they've been able to escape against some not that necessarily highly regarded opponents, and they found their way into the Final Four nonetheless?
Well, I think you really have to look at how Michigan has been winning their games. You know, some games, you know, they're lights out from the three-point range, as Texas A&M found out. In some games, they've had to rely on their defense. If you look at that Florida State game, Florida State has been averaging something like 88 points a game, and Michigan held this team to under 55 points. So Michigan has been able to win in a variety of ways, with their offense, with their defense. I'm not necessarily, I was surprised going into the tournament. I figured Michigan would probably get to the Elite Eight. The Final Four for me is just gravy on top of it. But, you know, a lot of teams, you know, a lot of highly ranked seeded teams were already knocked out. I figured Michigan would probably face North Carolina, would probably have to face Xavier, but those teams didn't make it. And I'll tell you one thing, you cannot sleep on teams that are higher seeded teams, because at this point, at this level, anybody can beat anybody.
So Michigan's played Montana, a 14 seed, Houston, a 6 seed. Then they get the game against Texas A&M, as you mentioned, a number 7 seed. And then they play the 9 seed in Florida State, and now they get an 11 seed, right, in Loyola-Chicago. While meanwhile, on that other side of the bracket, you've got 2 number 1 seeds that make it to the Final Four. What about those guys out there? They're going to say, well, Michigan, they had an easy road. Look at the road that Villanova's had to go down, or the road that Kansas has had to go down.
Well, listen. You can only play the teams that are in front of you. It's not our fault. It's not Michigan's fault that North Carolina.
Well, this is objective journalists. It's not our fault.
It's not Michigan's fault that North Carolina wasn't able to beat the team that was in front of them. It's not Michigan's fault that Xavier was not able to beat the team in front of you. You can only play what's in front of you. And if it's an easier path, it is what it is. But again, when you get to this level of basketball in this tournament, anyone can beat anyone at this level. And if you look at Loyola-Chicago, a lot of those guys are transfers in. They play really well together. They've got a similar system to what Michigan runs. So, I mean, it's going to be it should be a really good game, because these teams are identical. I think the only advantage really is between Xavier Simpson and what Mo Wagner brings to the table. Mo Wagner matched up with their center should be a mismatch that Michigan should be able to exploit, but Loyola is coached really well, and I expect them to adjust. So it should be a good game. But as far as Michigan have an easier path, listen, you can only play the teams that are in front of you, and Michigan is in the Final Four.
Speaking of coaching, and we've talked about on this show Matt Painter, we've lauded him, and John Beilein before too. Would you say right now, if you were starting a new team in the Big Ten, would you pick John Beilein to be your head coach, or do you still look at the track record of a guy like Tom Izzo and you say, well, maybe, you know, with the national championship that he's won, that he would take that nod?
Well, listen, I mean, Tom Izzo's track record of late has not been great, especially against John Beilein. So if you go back, and there's a lot to critique in that game, the Michigan State game versus Syracuse, and Michigan State fans will probably say the same, that they don't believe that was one of Tom Izzo's, you know, best coach games. And I think he deserves all the criticism for that. So, but if I'm a 5-star athlete kid and I'm looking to be developed, I'm definitely going to look at coaches like Beilein. I'm definitely going to look at coaches like Matt Painter. I'm definitely going to look at those guys who have a track record of not just developing top-tier talent, but developing guys that are 2 stars, 3 stars, under-the-radar guys. Those are the coaches that I'm going to look at, because I want to be developed as an athlete.
But how about this in that vein, though? If you're a 2 or 3-star guy, I mean, look at a guy like Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman and the praise that Beilein had for him after the Texas A&M game. That is a guy who was not highly regarded coming out of high school, that's become a great college player and has been coached up and his skill set's improved. And Mo Wagner the same way. But if I'm a 5-star kid and I want a path to the NBA, look at the success that Michigan State players have had, at least compared to Michigan in the NBA. If I'm a one-and-done type guy, maybe Tom Izzo's the coach that I want to play for.
Well, if you're looking at records, Michigan has put more first-round draft picks into the NBA than Tom Izzo has over the last few years. So that track record is now balancing itself out. And again, we're talking about developing those skills that you need to make it at the next level. And sometimes, listen, some guys, when they get to the NBA, their careers don't always take off instantly. Sometimes they need a little bit more, need a little bit more seasoning. They need a little bit more development, and then their careers kind of take off, as you see with Trey Burke. His career has been kind of resurrected, so to speak. So again, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're a one and done guy, then Michigan probably is not going to be the best path for you. Michigan State, Duke, all these other schools that are kind of known for that, that's probably going to be the best path for you. But if you're looking to be developed as a player, I don't think there's any other coach better in the Big Ten than either Tom Izzo, Matt Painter, and those two guys.
He's bringing it, man. I mean, this is objective information. He's not just wearing his maize and blue right now. He's got fire. He's spitting it out. That was some serious analysis. Let's take a break for a second. We know Sister Jean has been kind of sweeping the nation at Loyola and her being a fan of the Ramblers, and now Jalen Rose's grandmother. I didn't realize this until I saw the clip. She's 100 years old. Take a look at this. She looks pretty good for 100, right?
Yeah,
look at this.
Jean, it's been a good ride, but it's over Saturday. Go Blue, 100.
I like it. That's good.
100.
I like it. Not bad.